bearded man. Here I've got Philbert, the great, the powerful, the amazing Philbert. Oh my word. Philbert, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
All right, now I've been looking you up. You are apparently some priest guy, like a cleric. I don't know. You're a saint.
N-
It looked kind of like the Avatar of the Last Airbender to me. I don't know what's going on there. That's you,
no,
right? No, that's
no,
not you.
that was
Okay,
not
all right, all
me.
right.
No.
All right, well,
Same
I found some
haircut,
more.
but yeah.
I found a different Filbert. Now, apparently, you're a cop drama TV show
Ooh,
starring the BoJack Horseman called Filbert. Is that you? No, no, it's not.
no, but
All
I didn't even
right,
know that
okay.
existed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
love
And
BoJack
then
Horseman.
I found a different Filbert. This is Three's a Crowd. It's a pilot for a TV series starring William Charlotte as a cartoon Griff, and his cartoon Filbert comes to life. That was back in 1963. So that's definitely you, right?
No, that might have been my
Oh,
dad. It's a little old for
oh,
me.
okay, all right, all right. Well, I did find one more. I'm pretty sure this is you. It says Filbert is an idiotic bird who hangs
Oh.
out with his best friend Tommy, and it's this lovely looking guy here. So that's definitely you, right?
No, that one's not me.
Well,
We're probably
all
about the
right,
same height,
all
but
right. Well, I don't know.
it's a
I
little bit.
don't know who you are, so that's all right. We'll figure out who you are. Well, Filbert, who are you? What are you doing? What's going on?
Oh
Tell
man.
us about
Uh,
yourself.
well, my name is not Philbert, but
Ah,
it's been my nickname since like eighth grade. So I still go by it. My name's Phil, um, but yeah, I don't know. I'm a former minister. Uh, was in ministry from the time I was 16 until I was about 44, and then I left the ministry. Resigned and everything. You know, lost my faith over that time, and so now I'm doing a YouTube channel where I take on a lot of the questions and doubts that I had, and trying to relate to people who are going through the same thing. People who were, even if they weren't in ministry, if they were in leadership in the church or whatever. I try to just be an encouragement to them. Talk about a
wow.
lot of those issues.
Well, let's go back to your younger years when you were growing up. Did your family have a specific religion, and if so, what was that? Or maybe you had multiple religions growing up. Or
Oh yeah, my family were Southern Baptist, and that's the church I grew up in. My mom taught children's church and Sunday school, and she also did like a church bus kind of ministry where she would use felt boards and tell stories of Sticky the monkey and all the weird things he got into. And so yeah, I grew up around all that, and let's see, yeah, Southern Baptist. So you know, it's it was kind of crazy. I have five siblings, and I was the baby, and I was like a definite surprise. Because I came along way later. All my brothers and sisters were teenagers by the time I was growing up. So, and they were gone pretty quick. By the time I was a teenager, everybody was gone. So, um, but yeah, it, it was a neat place to grow up. You know.
and it sounds like a positive religious experience. Is that correct? Or
For the most part, especially when I was a kid, because I didn't
mm,
know any better. Um, but my parents divorced when I was two,
mm,
and so the first person my mother remarried or married was my first stepdad. He was kind of out there with some of his beliefs, kind of crazy. Um, he was one of those that well, an example, my brother gave me some Kiss albums when I was younger because I loved Kiss. And this guy, my stepdad there, he burned all my albums. He said it wasn't good enough to throw them away. He had to burn them because the evil had to pass through fire. So he had like some weird kind of Pentecostal background that didn't really jive up with what we believed. But um, he was out of the picture pretty quick, you know. And
That's sounds like the satanic panic sort of stuff.
oh yeah, that was definitely big, when I was growing up. Because I was born in '75, so yeah, and I grew up in the '80s, and there was so much of that, chick tracks and all the backward masking stuff. Everybody thought was happening. It was just crazy, and he got caught up in all that. And but like I said, luckily he wasn't around very long. And my next stepdad, which was the stepdad I had until he died, um, he was a good person, and yeah, he went to church when he felt like it, kind of thing. He didn't really get into it that much. Every once in a while, he might have some kind of experience where he would start going regularly, and then he'd drop out pretty quick again. So, but my mother, she was definitely faithful, and she wanted me to grow up to be um, a minister, and so that was kind of in my head from the time I was very young. I would go to church and be wearing like a three-piece suit and had this huge Bible under my arm. All the Bibles were huge because I was little then. I'm just as little now, and I'm only about 5'3" now. So I stopped growing in seventh grade. but but yeah, they would call me Little Preacher Man because of that, and it kind of stuck. And so, but when I was 8 years old, I got baptized, and I didn't really understand what was going on. I just knew some of my cousins were being baptized, and I wanted to do that too because I was told that's what you do if you love Jesus, and I loved Jesus as a kid, and so I wanted to do that, and I didn't really understand it. But then later, when I was 14, at a Disciple Now weekend, I became a Christian actually, and prayed the prayer, walked down the aisle, all that stuff, and a couple of years later is when I thought I needed to go into ministry. I thought, based on my experiences of what I thought God's voice was, how we heard God's voice, I thought God was calling me into ministry. And so I went down and talked to my pastor about it. He agreed with me, and then when I was 17, I was licensed into the ministry.
Wow.
And yeah, so started doing like a kind of apprenticeship thing with the pastor and all that, and just kind of developed from there.
So how? Yeah, I was gonna say, how did you start so young? Because you would think normally pastors have to study a lot and really know the
Oh,
scripture and take some sort of test.
oh yeah, I was into it, and but in the Southern Baptist Association and those churches, you can be licensed even at a young age. That's not an ordination. You can't perform weddings or anything like that. You can't pastor a church. You can hold ministry positions in the church, but you can't be like the senior pastor, um, and can't do anything that an ordained minister can do. But usually, what happens when you're licensed is you do like maybe 1 or 2 years, kind of as an apprenticeship type program, working with the pastor or other ministers in the church, and just doing whatever they ask you to do. And then after a year or two, when they feel you're mature enough, and if they still believe that this is what you need to do, then they'll ordain you. Then, if you go through all that.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. That's. I mean, that's quite unusual. Was it uh, any particular version of the Bible, or were you guys open on that, or was it like King James onlyist, or?
Uh, where I started at, it was pretty open. My pastor preached out of the NIV.
All right.
My youth minister usually used something like the New American Standard. I liked the New Revised Standard Version. That was the one I liked the most. Um, but I have been to churches where they were like King James only, and it was just crazy.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, yeah.
Would you call it like evangelistic, or because Southern Baptist, it's like depending on the flavor, you can get the quiet one and you can get the loud one, depending on which version. Were you
Oh
guys
yeah,
the
yeah.
quiet one or the loud one?
Well, they were definitely evangelistic.
Okay.
As a teenager going through the youth group, we learned how to share Jesus with our friends, and do the Romans road and all that. Going through the book of Romans and showing them, where they have to admit they're a sinner and believe in Jesus and all that stuff. Um, so yeah, very evangelistic. Uh, we weren't the shouting Baptists. I did go to a couple of those churches just to visit. Um, People used to ask me to come by and sing or fill a pulpit if a pastor was sick or something like that. And yeah, those were experiences that were
Yeah,
pretty
I went
crazy.
to a gospel church a couple times. That was definitely quite the experience. It's very different from anything else.
Oh yeah, definitely. Um, but when I was 18, we'd moved to Missouri from Texas. We'd lived in West Texas and we moved to Missouri, and that's where my mom and my stepdad's families were from. And um, while we were there, we started going to their old church, and they were some of the King James only people I was talking about,
Mm,
and I just really didn't feel like I fit in there. Um, I was The pastor had immediately invited me to continue my apprenticeship through him and all that, but it just wasn't a match. The youth group was like four people, and two of them were my
mm,
cousins, and so it was just a whole different kind of thing. But I'd made some friends with some kids who went to the Assemblies of God church, and they had like a big
mm.
youth group and all kinds of stuff going on, and so I started visiting with them, and eventually I left the Baptist church I was in and started going to Assemblies of God, and stayed there for quite a while. Went to an Assembly of God Bible College in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, and yeah, that's so when I actually started doing ministry where I actually got paid and stuff. That was with the Assemblies of God to begin with. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I went to one that was a mega church, or they were they had come from that, I think, and then transitioned kind of off into a mega church. Well, how big was it
The Assembly of God, for our town, it was pretty
for
big.
your
They
town?
probably
Yeah.
had about 200 or 300 every Sunday. The
Yeah.
youth group was probably about 20 to 30 kids. And this town here is less than 9,000 people in the population. So for
Right.
us, that
Right.
was a good sized
Most of the
church.
town is there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So you got to
So
know pretty much everyone then.
pretty much, yeah. Um, and yeah, I stayed there for quite a while, but when I was 20, I was in Bible school. I was at Pennsylvania going through that, um, mainly just because I loved like the Revolutionary War period, that time period, and the history around that. And so I wanted to go there. It was Valley Forge Christian College right there in Valley
Mm.
Forge, and so I was digging that, and went to school there, and that's where I started to have some doubts and questions early on.
Mm.
And around that time, I came home for the summer, um, and my mom got sick, and she had had cancer a few years
Mm.
before, and it had been in remission. And when I was home that summer, we found out it came out of remission, and it was
Mm.
bad.
Mm.
And so instead of going back to school, I stayed home to help take care of her.
Now, how old
And
are you at this point?
I'm 20 at this point.
20. Okay.
Yeah. And so I come home and I'm helping to take care of her. And then I remember I was asked to come and sing at this. It wasn't an Assemblies of God church. It was like a United Pentecostal,
Mm.
kind of thing. They wanted me to come and sing at a revival they were doing, and so I went there, and they had this woman that claimed to be a prophet, and she called me up. I guess someone had told her about my mom, and she said she had a prophecy for me, and I didn't really know how I felt about that, but I went up and I let her pray for me, and she told me that God had revealed to her that my mother was not going to die from this cancer. She told me
Mm.
that she was going to be a living miracle, and that people were going to see that God was still in the healing business, and told me to lift my hands if I believed in God and that God could do this. And so I did, because as a 21-year-old or a 20-year-old kid, I wanted my mom. I didn't want to lose her like that.
Yeah.
And so I stood up there and praised God with everyone else, believing what she said. And a couple of days later, my mother passed away.
Mm.
And
It's
to me, that was like the biggest thing with my faith, because I was like, I came to the Assemblies of God because I believed in divine healing, and I wanted to learn
mm.
more about the gifts of the Spirit and all of that. And I just felt like someone had taken everything I believed and just smacked me across the face with it.
Yeah, that's just so messed up. I remember hearing about a so-called psychic. Of course, they're all fake. That had told this gal they were trying to expose the psychics, and she told her that she had the gal had ovary cancer or whatever the technical term is for that. And so she'd been right, going checked and seeing that she was right. That's like, then you're going to that psychic for life. So it's kind of like a gamble on the psychic's part. Like, if I'm right, cool. So it seems like the gal was gambling with your mother's life. Like, if I'm right, you're gonna, be this super mega pastor forever, kind of thing.
Right, yeah. And that really, like I said, it just shook me to my core. And I went to my pastor and was talking about it, and he said, well, he said, God did heal your mother. He put her in a place where she'll never have to worry about cancer coming out of remission again. And, she's running around and she's excited and she's home and all this. And I said, but that's not what the woman says. She said that my mother would be a living miracle, you know.
Mm.
And, he said, well, I don't understand that. He said, but I know God has a plan for this. And you're going to get through it. And I tried, you know um, but I did end up kind of falling away for a little bit, stopped going to church, got out of ministry for a while there, got married, started having kids. you know and I went through a couple of marriages and had three daughters. And then I just one day I started thinking, I need to raise my kids in church, because I still believed in God. I just didn't want anything to do with ministry or anything like that at the
Mm.
time.
Did,
And so decided to start going back to church, got my kids in church. And before long, they started asking me to help out with the worship team and stuff like that. This was the same church I'd been to
mhm.
originally. And I did. And then the pastor asked me to be the minister of music. And I said, I've been divorced a couple of times now. I can't be a minister. He said, well, you can't be ordained in our denomination anymore. You know, he said, but you can still do ministry and you can work here at the church for us. And so I said, okay, and I did that until I guess I don't know if it's because of all the years I was out of church, just started thinking about things, studying more, reading the Bible more, um, for myself, rather than what a Sunday school literature book or something was telling me, how to interpret this. Um, and I got to where I was like, I don't believe this Pentecostal stuff anymore. Speaking
Mhm.
in tongues and laying on of hands and being slain in the spirit and all those things. It creeped me out.
Mm.
And at that time, I was not only the minister of music, I was also the youth pastor, and they wanted me to teach the kids how to speak in tongues. And I said, why do I need to teach them that? This is supposed to be a gift of the Spirit.
Mhm.
And they said, well, it's just like when you're a baby. When you start talking, you mimic what everybody else says. So you can give
Mhm.
them a few words and they can build their language from there. And I was like, I don't want to be a part of this. If
Yeah.
this is God, it's God. If it's not, it's not. You know.
Yeah.
So I left there and went back to the Baptist church where I'd been raised, and got back involved with them. It was a little easier. I didn't have, I pretty much agreed with everything they believed at the time. And they asked me to be their minister of music because their minister of music had just left. And so I did that for a little while. Then they ordained me there at the church, which, like I said, after two divorces, that still blew my mind. Um, but they ordained me there at the church, and gave me the title of Minister of Music and Media and Associate Pastor.
Hmm.
So I was like the assistant to the pastor. If he was gone or couldn't be there, I would fill the pulpit or teach his class or whatever. And I saw you kind of squint a little bit when I said media pastor.
Yeah,
Um,
like wow, really? Yeah.
yeah, all that means is like I took care of the church's social media pages, took care of their website, all
Yeah.
the AV equipment. They had a radio program they did every week, and I was in charge of that kind of thing. So that's what they
Wow.
meant by that. It's basically everything the pastor didn't want to deal with.
Yeah.
I did.
Cutting edge. It's a cutting
Yeah,
edge.
yeah, cutting edge. Yeah, we went from the transparent. We had oh, what were those called? What you'd show the transparencies
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
board.
The those light things,
Yeah, yeah,
projectors. Yeah,
overhead
yeah.
projector. Yeah,
Overhead
we
projector.
we
That's
went
it.
from
Yeah.
that to a like a movie screen with
Right.
one of those
Yeah.
little projector things there, and then from that to having it on the television. So
Yeah. I
we
remember
mounted televisions on the walls.
they had this kind of transitionary point where they had a projector thing that went on the projector that connected to the computer because they were like,
Right.
we don't know like how to connect this. Just like it was like an
Yeah,
in
that's pretty
between
much what
sort
we
of
went through.
phase. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we got all that, and I had to, you know, learn how to use all that and teach others how to use it and everything. And so that's what that meant. When it said media pastor.
Mm,
Of course, minister of music. I was in charge of the choirs. I directed the adult and youth choir. I didn't direct the children's choir, but I would order their materials and things for them.
mm.
Um,
There certainly is a power in singing and songs.
oh
That
yeah.
does bring people together, and
Well,
there's like a magic there to that in a real sense, not in a you know uh,
yeah,
being in a concert or whatever. It's just there's a lot of energy from that, so it
right.
must have been very powerful to be there for that.
Yeah. Well, when I first started going, they were still just doing hymns only. You
Uh,
know, and the same hymns they had been singing for 80 years or whatever.
right.
And so the first thing I did when I went in was because I was told, they wanted me to be their minister of music because they wanted to kind of transition into contemporary praise and worship.
Mhm.
Like some of the mega churches did Hillsong
Yeah,
and
got to
things like that.
update.
Yeah. So first thing we did was order new hymnals, because I wanted to start, slow. And the new hymnals had a lot of the more modern worship songs in it. So we went with that, and then I started adding a few uh, people to the worship team, and instead of it just being me leading the songs with an organist and a piano player, we added a bass, guitar, we added some drums, things like that, vocalists, other guitars, and eventually turned it into a worship team. And so that was the main reason they wanted me there, was to do that. So um, so I
Did
had
you
to deal
learn?
with a lot of that.
Did you know how to play an instrument, or you're just a really good singer,
Oh,
or a little
well,
bit of both?
I'm a piano player and singer. Yeah,
Okay,
um,
cool.
yeah. I love the piano. That's my instrument there. Keyboards, organ, anything with keys like that. Guitar, I like guitar, but I'm not very good on it. I can play like a few chords, and I never did really figure out how to bar, So
You know how to
that
read music then?
yes, I
Okay,
can
cool.
read piano and voice
Wow.
music. But yeah, because I directed the choirs, like I said, and gave private lessons, voice and piano lessons to people in the church who wanted their kids to do that. That was all part of my job there.
Mm.
You know, and then like I said, filling in for the pastor as well. And I was there mm, after being ordained and everything. Probably I was there about 7 years, something like that.
Mm.
And I remember we started doing this Bible study group that I led, and we would meet every night. We called ourselves a Tuesday night Bible club, and it's a total rip off of Cheryl Crow's Tuesday night music club. But she's from Kennett, Missouri. We live in Crothersville, Missouri, which is like 20 miles away. So, and And my oldest brothers actually grew up with Cheryl. My brother Dane graduated with her in
Hmm.
Kennett. They were living there then. And my brother Mel, he used to sell pot to her. So, that's how we knew Cheryl Crow. And her best friend was my babysitter. So, uh, but yeah, that's the only time I really ever saw Cheryl was when she came over to see my brother. But and I forgot where I was.
Well, you were music director of your
Oh yeah.
church and
Oh,
blazing
the
glory for God.
yeah, the Bible study. Yeah.
Bible
And
study.
we decided with this Bible study group, we didn't just want to read through it or follow some kind of curriculum. We wanted to get really in depth and go into all the background. And you can probably guess from there what happened to my faith.
Oh, you started to look into it.
Yeah, because
Uh-oh.
I had read through the Bible. I've read the Bible 5, 6 times. Through my
Yeah.
life, and I always studied it within its the context of whatever I was doing at the time. Topical studies, things like that, going along with our church's curriculum and following their read through the Bible in a year plans and things like that. But this time it was different because we were going through the historical background. We were looking at archaeological findings and things, anything we thought might help us to get an understanding of what was happening when this particular book was written. And sorry, and that was what began to give me a lot of questions and a lot of doubts.
Let me ask
And
you specifically about that because I went through that sort of research too in my deconversion. I found fraud after fraud after fraud, and that's what made me think you don't you don't lie when you have the truth. Did you find a lot of fraud, or did you find just the good stuff, or what was that like for you?
a lot of fraud, a
Yeah.
lot of issues, a lot of problems. Especially, we started doing a parallel study of the Gospels, and so we
Mm,
were studying all four of the Gospels right there with each other. And that's when you start to notice a lot of these discrepancies. Like
mhm,
between the stories of Jesus' birth, the stories of his resurrection, the stories of the crucifixion, and that whole week there.
mm,
Um, and a lot of things began to stick out to me, and I began to write down my questions and the doubts I was having, and went to my pastor about it, and he he really didn't have any answers for me.
mm,
So nothing that didn't come out of our Sunday school book, and so I started reading different Christian apologists. People like Lee Strobel, and Lee Strobel's stuff just didn't answer any questions. I felt like that was the most watered down apologetics I'd ever looked at. Even as a Christian, it made me angry. I was like, you're not even addressing the issues here.
yeah.
But and then I started to watch a lot of debates on YouTube between people like Richard Dawkins and William Lane Craig, and people like Christopher Hitchens and others doing these debates. And you know how when you're watching YouTube and you'll have all these other videos pop up over here, other
Hmm,
things you might
hmm.
like or things similar.
Right. Yeah. The feed.
And yeah, and I saw something pop up for the thinking atheist. And I
Mm.
was like, what in the hell is that? The thinking atheist. So I clicked on it, and he was talking about, it was a clip from his podcast. It was all audio. But he was talking about um, his deconversion experience. And
Mm.
he had also mentioned a book by a guy named Dan Barker called Godless that he said
Mm.
was very instrumental in, what was going on with him. And so I got both of those books. I got Seth's book called Deconverted, and I got Godless by Dan Barker. And
Mm.
um, I got them on audio, so I was listening to those and still going to church and everything. But I noticed that a lot of their issues were the same issues I had, and a lot of their problems were the same problems I was having. And I started thinking, I'm not even really sure if I believe anymore. And
Mm.
I thought, I don't need to be in ministry if I don't believe what I'm teaching. And so I resigned from the ministry. I got at that time I was working at our local school, driving a school bus and doing maintenance, which was mainly like changing light bulbs and putting up pencil sharpeners and things, real simple stuff. But I was doing that and working at the church because the church couldn't really afford to pay me as much as they did the pastor, for me to do that full time. Um, but I resigned from both of those, and I got a different job. And while I was in the process of all that, I just kept reading these books and listening to the Thinking Atheist podcast, and then I discovered, the same way, people like Matt Dillahunty and the Atheist Experience and all of that. This was back in, when was this? This was probably 20, 2019, around 2018, 2019. And
So now you're how old?
I'm
Back
sorry.
then? Back then, how old are you now? Or
I'm 50 now. So it was
50
like
now.
44 back then. So probably
44?
2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Um,
you think that's really where your faith is now, kind of like hanging on threads at this point, or
yeah. Yeah. It really
yeah.
is. And like I said, I heard these things, but I was also still like, I really wanted to believe. I didn't want to lose
Mm.
my faith. This is
Yeah,
all I've ever known.
they're used
And
to it.
yeah, and it's my comfort. My relationship with Jesus was my comfort.
Was
You
it
know,
still making money for you at that time, or were you out of the church stuff by then?
oh, I was out of. I'd already resigned by this point.
Okay, okay, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, you okay.
and
Just wanted
I
to get
never
the
really made.
timeline right.
Yeah, right. But
You didn't
yeah,
make that much anyway, so
no, not
well,
doing what
for
I was doing. Yeah.
some, being Christian might be a financial thing as well. So,
Oh
it's
yeah.
another kind of tie that keeps them going.
Oh yeah. And there's a lot of people who do make a lot of money off that.
Yeah.
The thing with me was I felt like where my ministry needed to be was smaller churches.
Mm.
And so when I got back into ministry, that's exactly what I wanted. I worked in my local church, and then I went to another local community church. They couldn't afford to have full time ministers in music, but that's what I wanted. And also I kind of felt like because of my divorces and everything, I wasn't going to be asked to come to a larger church.
Yeah, it's so wild with the you can't be a pastor because you got divorced. Like, oh no.
Well, it's okay if you're divorced once, but if
Yeah.
you
Oh,
remarry,
like
then you're up
twice.
shit
Oh
creek. Yeah,
no. Yeah.
yeah, you're right.
It's so silly. It's just like,
Right, yeah. But then it's like I wanted to believe, and I was praying every day,
mm,
because the Bible says if you draw near to God, He'll draw near to you. And I was like, okay, that's
mm,
what I'll do. I'll draw near to God. I'll keep studying. I'll keep praying. And I was literally crying out to God, don't let me fall away. You know what it's going to take to change my heart. You know what it's going to
mm,
take to bring me back, to take care of all these doubts, because the Bible says that he knows all your thoughts. He knows you very intimately, even the numbers of hair on your head, which I don't have as many these days. But that's, and I was like, if you know all this about me, you know exactly, because I didn't even know what to ask for as far as if I was wanting a sign or anything like that. I didn't know what it was going to take to convince me,
mm,
but I was like, you do. But God was, silent.
silent. Yeah.
And I remember all the nights just praying and crying out to God and studying my Bible until one night I I just realized, who am I talking to?
Mm,
And it dawned on me, I don't even believe anyone's there anymore. I don't believe in this God anymore.
mm.
And
The scary moment.
it really was. It really was, because like I said, this had been my purpose. This has been everything that I grew up to believe. And
Good chunk of your life.
yeah, yeah. And I was like, well, what am I going to do now? You know, um, and yeah, so I was at a really kind of messed up place there.
Mm,
But I remember shortly after that, I was working, and I'm driving a truck for a living now. So, that's what I went to, and it pays decent money, and I get a lot of time to just think and listen to audiobooks, and when I'm down, I can read and study and do my own thing. Um, and so while I was listening to some of these audiobooks, I discovered Bart Ehrman and a book called Jesus Interrupted. I'd seen a video on YouTube where he was giving a lecture over that book. And he said that was actually the second part, or the second book from another one called Misquoting Jesus. And
Mm.
so I went and got both of those books and listened to them, and then I bought them, and the hardbacks, and was sitting out just studying through these. And once again, these were the same discrepancies I had found when we were doing those parallel studies of the Gospels. And he was bringing up even more, and I would look them up because I wasn't just going to take his word for it. And sure enough, everything he was saying was there. And, you know, it just it just blew my mind, because I was like, God, how long was I deceived?
Mm.
Into believing this was inspired and inerrant and infallible. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I remember early in my, when I was early in ministry, someone asked me, is there anything that could make you lose your faith? And I said, yeah, prove to me the Bible's not true.
Hmm.
And this
Mm.
is exactly what happened.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
You know, because that was my standard. It's what I measured everything by.
It,
If I wanted to know if something was truly of God, or something was true or false, if it couldn't be backed up with scripture, I didn't believe it.
were
You know,
would you call that first year of deconversion? Like I myself was angry for at least a year. Did you
oh yeah,
did you feel that, or did you
oh yeah, I still
like
feel that.
brush it off? Some people, everyone's different. Some people are like, no big deal. I didn't believe, that's it. I moved on with life. And other people, like, they were completely wrecked. So, everyone's different with that, because really it's like you lost a friend. It's like a
It really
friend
is.
died or something.
It
And you're
is. You're
just like,
grieving.
you're grieving, right?
Yeah, yeah. It really is. And no, I still get angry.
Oh
I
yeah.
still get very angry, especially when I watch people like Frank Turek. You
Oh,
know,
just don't get me
and
started.
yeah, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that I still have to deal with that sometimes, because I'll be doing fine, and just one little remark from someone, or a video like that or whatever, and all of a sudden I'm just fuming. I'm like, I'm going to make a video about this,
Mm.
you know. But around the time where I was coming out of it, because I did have so much anger, I learned about the clergy project, and
Yeah, I
I
was
got
gonna ask you about
in
that.
touch with some people there, and I had someone call me on the phone, and we talked for a while, and they allowed me to be a part of the group, and made some really good connections, and got some really good advice from there, and just made some good friends doing that. And also, you know, through that, I decided, well, maybe I want to tell my story somehow and share with people like me, who have been through this, and they're feeling angry, and they're feeling lost, and everything. And so I started a podcast called The Iscariot Generation, and did that for about 3 years, and then eventually changed over to the Mighty Philbert. But the Iscariot
Mm.
Generation was supposed to be a place where we could talk about, you know, give each other encouragement and hope, be kind of like a community kind of thing. But
Mm.
it kind of ended up going in a different direction. Um, but I did that. That podcast is still out there. You could go to Spotify or wherever you listen to streams and find the Iscariot Generation. Hear all those episodes.
Mm.
The first episode, I just shared my story,
Mm.
and but yeah, I had thought about that name because everybody, when I finally announced to people that I was resign, not that I was resigning from ministry, but that I no longer believed in a God or held to a religion or anything like that,
Mm.
I got a really some bad feedback. You
Yeah, I was
know,
gonna ask, how did everybody react?
oh
Friends,
yeah,
family, etc.
oh yeah, I had several family members and friends, who just cut me out of their lives completely.
Oh, Yeah.
And just because I don't believe, we didn't have any problems, or we weren't fighting about anything. It's just I said I didn't believe this anymore.
Mm.
And what really surprises me about especially some of my friends and family that did that, is a lot of them, I'm the one who led to Jesus in the first place.
Mm.
They weren't Christians before. I'm the one who prayed with them and helped them to do
Mm.
that. But um, but yeah, that was really messed up. And I even had people messaging me telling me they were going to kick my ass, because their kids had been in my youth choir or been in my youth
Mm.
group, and now they were like, if Phil's not a Christian, what am I? And they didn't know what to do with themselves, and they were
Mm.
blaming me for that. I'm like, no, why don't you just have a conversation with them, find out
Wow.
what they believe and what they don't believe, instead of just saying, you're going to our church, this is what you believe.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. It's
know,
like that will really teach you to believe in Jesus. Yeah. I'll beat
right?
you
Yeah,
up. That'll
yeah,
get you.
yeah. They're gonna beat the devil out of me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but but yeah, it was
I'd
just
like to
crazy
see
stuff
that
like that.
boxing match. Believe in Jesus. Punch. Believe in.
I would lose. I don't think I've ever won a fight in my
Ding ding
life.
ding.
Yeah, like I said, I'm
Satan
only
wins again. Yeah.
I'm only 5'3", so I got my ass kicked a lot when I was growing up. But uh, but hey, they knew I was there because they had some bruised up kneecaps.
They
I'm
don't.
telling you.
People really don't know how to respond to it it because we as humans try to put ourselves in the other person's shoes, so it makes someone really uncomfortable when all of a sudden you don't believe, and now
Right.
they have to put they're like, I don't want to feel that way because it causes cognitive dissonance. So yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, still though,
And
it's not good that people want to even say they want to hurt you, whether they mean it or not. It's not good.
right. Well, no one ever actually came up and did anything.
Yeah, well,
But
yeah, that's
but
good.
but yeah, I
But
did get a few
still,
of those messages. Yeah, yeah. But it's just crazy the way people react. And it's like you said, they're still in it.
hmm
And it's a threat to them and their faith. Because they probably have a lot of the same doubts and questions. It's just they're staying there. You know.
so after your angry however long period, and then you start doing YouTube, as a your label would be what, atheist, agnostic, skeptic, something combination thereof, or do you like labels, or what do you do with that?
Yeah, it kind of evolved a little bit, or because I went from being a staunch believer to being a staunch non-believer.
Yeah.
It's like anything about God, angels, demons, supernatural, ghost. I don't care what it was, Bigfoot.
mm,
It didn't matter. I didn't believe in anything.
mm.
I just went the complete
You went
way
the other
like
way.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you live life and things happen and you start wondering, oh, could there be something out there? Could there be, I don't know everything,
Yeah.
so I can't just dismiss it. But all I can say is, from what I do know, I don't believe, right now. So whatever that is, it's like
Yeah. I,
I'm not ruling out the fact that there could be some kind of higher power or whatever. If there is one, I don't think it gives a fuck about any of us.
yeah,
You know,
that's kind of my
I
stance
mean,
too. As a
right.
non-theist, have you learned stuff now that you couldn't have learned when you were a theist?
Um,
Like
well,
forbidden
yeah, I don't know
knowledge,
if I
or like
couldn't have learned it, but I wouldn't have allowed
you
myself to learn it.
yeah, that's kind of what I was going
Yeah,
for. Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't have sought it out. I wouldn't have
Yeah.
listened to atheists give lectures about anything,
Right.
because
The
if
evil people. Oh, those evil
oh yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah, because we're supposed to be separate, right? We're supposed to be
hmm
sanctified and not,
Don't
in
yoke
the
with
world
them and
but
all
not
that.
of the world, that kind of thing.
hmm
And but I don't know. That's I guess that's right. I wouldn't have allowed myself to learn anything like that. So yeah, definitely, it's been like, how your kids are when they're little and they're like little sponges. And it's like every bit of information they just absorb, and you can
hmm
almost see their head swell sometimes. That's how I feel right now. It's like
hmm
I'm learning so much that I wouldn't allow myself to learn before. I was told that evolution was the fruits of the devil, and I grew
Mm,
up in a town that didn't teach evolution in high
yeah.
school. In West Texas, where I went to high school, and so I wasn't going to go back and study it because I thought that's a threat to my faith.
And now you
That's
can.
Yeah.
And
Now I can, and
yeah.
it's amazing. You
Yeah.
know.
It gives me a thrill to learn, and
Hmm.
that's something I didn't have when I was younger, and I'm glad that I have it now. I wish I'd had it a long time ago because it would have been easier to learn all this. It's like now I'm like, give me more, more.
Right. And it's the same thing with like with these Christian apologists and things. When you listen to their arguments, you look at it from a whole different angle now, because before, you're
Hmm.
like with me, before I was looking for any reason to keep believing.
Mm.
Now I'm just seeing it for the bullshit it was, and I'm like, okay, it's instead of just watching it and getting angry, I'm taking notes, and I'm like, okay, I can refute this argument.
Yeah, yeah,
I read a book
exactly.
about this. I can take this down. But it's it seems like I can't watch any. I don't know about you, but it seems like I can't watch anything just for enjoyment anymore. It's always homework. You know.
Well, I mean, I have my things I watch for enjoyment. I have the things I watch for YouTube to make stuff out of. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I've interviewed many people in their deconversion stories, and there's always a theme of education or questioning is constant throughout. And if you listen to the believer stories of conversion, it's always feelings and experience. And so
Exactly.
it's really that's a huge difference
And
between the
and
two.
and where do those feelings and experiences come from?
It's all you. It's all you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all indoctrination.
Yeah.
We see something as a move of God,
Yep.
or God speaking to us, because we were taught to believe that when certain
That's
things
yeah.
happen, that's what it is. It's God speaking to us. It's God showing us something. He's revealing
Yeah.
something to us. And if there's something you really want and you're praying for it, and something happens, you can say, okay, well, God confirmed to me that He's going to
Hmm.
answer this prayer. You know,
A
Uh,
recent video was just saying like, look for, pray to God, and then look for all the things that could be God. And I'm like, you're just telling people look for patterns that you're not
right,
telling, because it's so non-specific. It's like, oh, it's like that didn't. It's just it's not even a thing. You're not doing skepticism. You're looking to confirm what you want to believe at that point, and that's all
exactly.
he was doing. So I took that, but I went after that video. Whether that has any impact or not, who knows? But we each
Right.
are all the voices of atheists are out there doing their thing. And I'm glad to have you doing your thing out there.
Well, thank you. Yeah, but yeah, like I said, I started with that Iscariot generation thing because, like I said, people were calling me Judas because I turned my back on Jesus, and I was like, well, there's a whole bunch of us out here. But then when I changed over to Mighty Philbert, I started doing more like I want to do counter apologetics. And
Mm.
so I have a lot of videos where I do that. I'll play videos from apologists and kind of break it down and tear down their arguments. Um, and then I wanted to focus kind of on Gen X stuff.
Mm.
My generation that I grew up in, and the things we went through, how we were indoctrinated so badly, and why so many of us, as we got older, walked away from religion.
Mm.
So I got a lot of videos about Gen X stuff, the Satanic Panic, like you mentioned
Mm.
earlier, and Hell House. I just did a video about Hell
I
Houses
remember
and
that.
Judgment
Oh
Houses. You
man,
remember those?
I remember hearing about that. Yeah, and reading about that. I watched a whole documentary on
Oh
it.
yeah,
It's very amazing stuff. Just
it's crazy stuff. Yeah, and
scary stuff, man.
yeah, but it was talking about
Back in
Hell
the
Houses,
'80s.
and yeah. Do you remember the Chick Tracks? You remember
Yeah,
those?
yeah.
I
I
used to get
remember
them
the
as Halloween
movie.
candy.
Oh, what is that movie? I can't remember, but I think it's Tom Hanks, really young Tom Hanks, and it
Oh yeah,
Mazes and Monsters, I
yeah.
think.
Mazes and Monsters. I think that's
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah, such a bad movie. It's like,
Oh yeah,
oh,
that
D&D is bad. Ah!
right. No, my parents were pretty cool. They didn't really, with the exception of that one stepdad I talked about earlier, but but they didn't tell me what I could listen to or what I could watch or anything like that. No matter how the church felt about it. I remember we got a flyer one time in the mail where it was saying that the president of Procter, or the chairman of Procter and Gamble, had went on Sally Jesse Raphael or one of those shows, and that he was saying that all the funds that Procter and Gamble collects are going to the Church of Satan and all this
Oh,
stuff. And
yes, of course.
yeah, and it turned out that this flyer went around like every few years, and it started off, it was the Donahue show, and then it was Geraldo, then it
Yeah.
was Sally Jesse, and Montel and whoever was popular at the time. It was always the same story. It was just a different date and a different television show. But this would make its rounds, and they would have all these Procter and Gamble products listed on the back of the flyer, and they would tell you need to boycott these products, so you're not giving your money to Satan.
Mhm.
And we got one of these in the mail, and I remember my mom was looking through it, and she said, "Well, this is everything I use." And she said, "And I'll be goddamned if I'm going to do without Charmin toilet paper, you know, because Charmin's the best. Mr. Whiffle didn't
Yeah.
squeeze that for no reason, you know."
Yeah.
But yeah, so they were pretty cool about that kind of thing. But the people I went to church with, their parents and our youth director and the pastor, they were a whole other level.
Mm.
And they would tell us how evil this music was we were listening to and the movies we watched and all that. And yeah, how we shouldn't go trick or treating and all that. And I'm like, I'm not missing trick or treat. I'm a fat kid, and I can get free candy. I'm not missing that.
All
But
right. Got a couple of questions from chat. What denomination was it again that you were in? We already covered that, but go ahead and.
uh, started with Southern Baptist and then went to Assemblies of God for several years and then back to Southern Baptist.
And Tilty wanted to know more about the clergy project experience. If you could recap that or get in more details about that.
Okay. Well, basically, I had went on their website and I clicked a thing saying that I was interested. Wanted to know more about it, and someone gave me a call. They called me on my phone, and he asked me a lot of questions. What did were you a minister? Were you ordained? Did you do this and that? And we talked for quite a while, and he just told me that he thought I would be a great addition to the group, and I after that they gave me like a login code, password,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, to use my first time going on, and I got on the site, and it's there's a lot of um, it's not chat rooms, but it's similar to that. Where people will go in, they'll post something, and you can come back and comment on it and things like that. There's a word for it, I just can't think of it
Forum.
right now. Forum, yeah, yeah. There's several forums on there, and you can go in and all kinds of different conversations and connect with people like that. And so yeah,
Good resource. Yeah, I
it really
I
is.
had called recovery from religion at least once, and that was kind of interesting. I thought about volunteering with them, but I'm not really a social person. So, even though I am social on YouTube, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. There's
Yeah,
certain things I'm good at, certain things,
I didn't realize that I could see that. I didn't know we were live. So it's
Yeah, yeah,
like,
you can see chat over there. Yeah, ignore
yeah,
chat. They're in their own universe most of
yeah.
the
It
time.
was it
They're
was
actually
marked
in
on.
our universe.
Yeah, it was set up on private chat, and so I clicked on comments. I'm like, oh, there it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My
Yeah,
Mercedes had an 8-track. Yeah, yeah, back in the day. Uh,
yeah. I remember 8 tracks. I loved 8 tracks. I used to have
yeah,
like a
we had
little
those in the
portable
car.
battery operated 8 track player. I could carry on like
Hmm.
a little boom box.
We had
That
them
was
for the
great.
car, but I had cassette tapes and then for a long, long time in VHS and all that. It's just back in the day, things were
Yeah.
simpler. And nothing, everybody was nice and peaceful, and prices were fair. You know,
Right.
Politicians
Yeah.
weren't corrupt, and it was back in
Oh yeah.
my day.
Yeah, that's how my kids treat me, because I was talking about a couple of songs I had on 45, a while back, and my kids were like, "What's a
What's a
45?" I'm like,
45?
It's a
Oh,
little tiny album, a little tiny
yeah.
record, just one song,
Yeah.
usually.
I
But
was going to
yeah,
ask
that
about the
made me feel old.
music. Have you made any like atheist music?
I don't know if you call it atheist music specifically. I mean, I get my views in there. But
Yeah, yeah,
I've
yeah.
written a lot. It's when I was doing music, man, I released an album and it was
Hmm.
horrible and didn't do well at all. You know, but it was so much harder then because all my songs that I wrote, I felt like I had to give some kind of a lesson. I had to relate it
Mm,
back to the Bible in some way. Um, and so it was harder. And now I can just write what I'm feeling and what's going on in my life, and
yeah.
I'm writing a lot more now than I did before. And matter of fact, early next year, if everything works out right, I'll have a album coming out then.
Oh,
You know,
cool.
which is
Look
going to be
forward
called
to
"My
it.
Wife Made Me Do This," because she did. You know,
That's great. That's a
yeah,
great name. I like it. Yeah, yeah, I like music, so let me know, certainly.
sure thing.
Well, we've got your YouTube in the description, so everybody better subscribe, or I will send the lobsters. I might send the lobsters anyways, but definitely they will come for them. Philbert, do you want to say anything else? Add anything else to the people out there?
No, main thing is I'm just glad to finally get to have a conversation with you, and kind of meet you this way. Um, and glad to see people like Tilting Windmill and the Unknown Atheist out there. I talk to Tilting like in almost every other page that I go to. Every other video I watch, he's
Yeah,
usually in there. And
he's
he,
omnipotent. He's
oh yeah,
omnipresent, or whatever. One of those omni. He's
yeah,
omnipresent. That's what it is.
yeah,
Yeah, we also have Robin and Christina is chilling out, making food and listening to it. So we
oh
got a
yeah,
few. Yeah, and then there will be people later on that watch it later and don't ever comment because I don't know,
yeah.
whatever.
Well, I'm
Uh,
sorry if I was kind of all over the place.
No,
If
no,
I
not
was,
at all. No,
I
I like.
I got
No, it's a
nervous.
great deconvert. It was a deconversion story. Exactly what I like to do. And have, and I'm interested in that because I have my own story. We all have our story, and even I had a Johnny Drive-By once upon a time. He didn't have a deconversion story; he was just an atheist. And I
Mhm.
was like, "Well, what are we supposed to talk about? I don't know. What's it like?
Yeah.
Like from that perspective?" So we went down that. I was like, "Well, what is that like?" Because here's somebody that's like turning around everywhere you go. And it's like all these people believe in magic, and what would that be like? So, what a
Right.
unique way of looking at the world through that eyes. Because it's like I know what it is to have believed, and now know I know it's to not believe, and you
Yeah.
know, and I love the apologist that said I used to be an atheist. I'm like, oh yeah, not the sort of kind I know.
Yeah. Well, if it's okay, I did want to say one more
Absolutely, yes.
thing,
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
just to kind of finish up my story here. Back in 2021, I got married again, and when I was in ministry, I wasn't allowed to date,
Mm.
especially not to get married again. If I got married again, I would not be ordained any longer because the two divorces were enough. And so I didn't date all that time, about 12 years. I didn't date or anything. And so then once I left the church and everything, I went on a date. And matter of fact, it was my second wife that fixed me up on this date because my second wife and I, we're like best friends still to this day. And we have a daughter together. I have two daughters with my first wife, and then one daughter with my second wife. And then now I met my new wife, and I never could have dated her as a Christian, even if I hadn't been divorced before, because she was a pagan. And I saw Christina
Ooh.
Blackfeather come in
Yeah.
here, and she's like, she's a pagan
Pagan.
in the
Yeah,
chat,
yeah.
yeah. And yeah, that's what my wife was, and I guess she still is, but she's not active like she had been
Mm.
before. As far as doing anything. But she still has all her beliefs and things, and I don't argue with her. She don't argue with me, but it works for some reason. I don't know why, but I don't know if it would have worked out with a Christian. Well, I guess it would just depend on how radical they
Mm.
were or whatever. But yeah, I met her, and so I got two new stepdaughters, through her. and they've adopted me. And,
Oh,
so now I've got 5 daughters, and as of last week, 5 grandchildren. So 3 with my daughter Erin, and then 2 with my stepdaughter Katie, and it's just crazy.
it's a good.
And I feel so old because my youngest daughter just turned 20 today, and I'm like, daggum, I'm 50. I'm like half a century, and it's just weird to see your babies that old and have their own babies and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
But
That.
I just wanted to kind of bring you up to date on where I am
Yeah,
now and
yeah,
what I'm doing,
absolutely.
and all that. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, great. Thank you. Okay, well, we'll wrap it up because otherwise I'll lose my remaining brain cells. I usually cook for about an hour and then my brain goes kaput. So, all
Oh, me too. Me too. Yeah.
right,
Well,
Philbert, thank
I
you
just
so much.
really
We'll do,
appreciate you.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, we'll
Yeah.
do more stuff. We'll find things for you to do at some point in time. If the muse hits me, I'll be like, oh, read this silly thing for me, and I'll make you do stuff. Write this song for me. Cover my song. Logic ate me because I've already had catapult pancakes covered, so now I want Logic ate me covered. Do this.
Cannibal pancakes. Yeah, I'm
Catapult
digging that.
pancakes. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you got to
Maybe
eat
we'll.
them before they eat you, right?
No, no, not cannibal, but that would be great too. Catapult.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's very different.
Cannibal.
That's very
Yeah,
different. Yeah.
that's a great song. I think that will be the next one.
Yeah, cannibal pancakes. I just gave you an idea there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a
Very
new
good.
idea now. Cannibal pancakes. Okay. I have to think about that. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, Logic ate me, of course. Yeah, I have 3 albums, quote unquote. So.
There you go. I'm gonna have to look
Yeah,
for them then.
yeah, I'll send them to you if you want. But yeah, all right. Thank you, Philbert. Everybody go subscribe to Philbert
Please.
or
Yeah.
else the lobsters. And then Philbert, I'll leave you with the last words. Whatever you normally say at the end of videos, if you have the thing.
Oh, I just say, remember, you don't have to be religious to do the right thing. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and stay mighty. That's what I say.